Right, GM everyone. We have less than 26 minutes to the FOMC statement. Jerome Powell will be coming up very soon. The volatility is kicking in immediately. Market is already moving up. The likes of Fatcoin. If you remember, I told you guys that Fatcoin, Ondo, these are tokens that are looking pretty bullish. That are worth looking into. Right. So if you look at Fatcoin right now on the 4 hours, you can see that Fatcoin is forming a pattern. Fatcoin is trying to form a reversal pattern. So we're expecting Fatcoin to give us a spike, a leg down, and a reversal because it's already preparing since corner for an upward movement. So we're expecting to see Fatcoin give us a leg down. First of all, the nearest liquidity to take Fatcoin, come and take this one. Closer one here first and move down because this one and this one are all together. Market will come straight away and take all this right here. Name this one, this. Because they are the closest city market will set down for jump or the recovering that will take the market up. So at the moment, we're looking for see that volatility market SV. So like I said, if you cannot trade this volatility, it's also wise that you off the market. Wise you stay off the market if you're not be able to trade this volatility. It's gonna be very, very crazy. Your stop loss cannot even save. In this situation, stop loss cannot save us. The only thing that can save you is you. You have to save yourself. It's either your hand is on your phone or you close your trade and wait. So now let us identify the liquidities where we are expecting the market to go. Now, because of the level of volatility that will come into the market, looking at Bitcoin, this is a reversal. Now there's a liquidity right here. So because of the volatility, there's a possibility that we're going to hit right here. Take all these lows. All right. So depending how far the market will go when this man will start the statement for today. So we have liquidity right here. You can see this one also a liquidity right here, which can be taken by the market. Now, after this, now we have some liquidity up here. Have all these liquidities up here. Market will target these highs, all these previous highs. They are coming to take them. Because of the cost of the volatility, market would like to do some movement. You see all these places I marked before now. All these are liquidity that market are going to visit. This $1 plus of Fatcoin. Fatcoin has left this $1 for That was the month of August. So they are going to come and revisit all these ones. So you have idea of where the market is going, right? So the volatility is kicking in. How many minutes we have? About we have less than 20 something, less than 20 minutes to go. Less than 20. What? Yeah. Not even up to 20 something minutes. Not. So you're gonna be careful. It's not nice play. It's not a child's play, right? Pitches. I cannot. I don't know why your request don't want to be. I've been trying. It's not working. Another request. So altcoin since some days has been looking so bullish. All right, volatility is on. Market is flashing. Everywhere is hot already. It's pumping on. They are pumping the market. They are pumping it. Pumping is pumping. Going crazy already. Pumps are coming in. Crazy pumps coming in. The pump and dump day. Pumping and dumping. Bitcoin has gone back to 116. Yes. Yes, crazy pump and dump. It's gonna be like this. It's gonna be like this from now till the next 4 hours. It's gonna be crazy pump and dumps. Better run away for your life. Crazy pump and dump. Money is coming in. Liquidity flowing in. I'm out of the market. I cannot handle it. I'm out. I can't handle it. I'm out of the market. because there's no guarantee for the pump and the dump. Can't handle it. Stay away and watch. Stay away and watch. Watch them. When they finish, we can join them. I've closed all my short and long because they are going to liquidate everybody. Yeah, who is making that noise? Was it for you outside or what? That place is so noisy. I beg, mute yourself. No noise. Yeah. The phone don't open now. Okay, you don't even know. I think it's here. Okay. But you never still there, okay, Sha, but I just have to, as long as I say don't open, I can't set I put them for never, may no off again. I put them never until this FOMC meeting finish. Tomorrow I will now know how to remove that rubbish. Wasn't that? By now I found the cry now. I found the cry. No need to pretend. Na cry go the cry by now. Pump and dump going on in the market. If you cannot handle them, better stay away. Or you go to sports. So better stay away. Cannot. Me, I've closed all my trade. Cannot handle this thing. Kind of inflow that I'm seeing here. I don't want to risk it. Once this man climb up now, it's gonna be like a rain. To be falling like a rain. So we can see some reversal patterns forming on lower time frame. And we can see that still some liquidities. This is opportunity to claim some liquidities up and down, both up and down. So because of those liquidities, we need to be careful. All this kind of thing, market might want to come and reclaim all these ones, all these things. This is the opportunity to run them, start wasting time. All this one, like this small spike that happened now, come and take it again. All these ones, come back to them. All these ones. So these are opportunities for them to do. They are up and down, touch here, touch here. They will tap everybody. This is how the market will be doing. How they do. Everybody, nobody will have peace of mind. This how they will do. This is how the market will be very soon. They will scatter everybody's head. To make sure that you never enjoy the market. Whether you are shorting, whether you are longing, everybody will collect. So not because you enter long that will save you. Not because you enter short that will save you. Everybody will collect. So for now, I've shot out of my Ethereum and Solana and the SU. Let me observe the market, because the inflow I'm seeing here is crazy inflows coming. So I cannot take that risk, and I don't know how to use 5x leverage, but I never know the kind of dump that this market is going to dump. Use 5x leverage and decide to dump you where you will not come out in the next 3 months or 2. So for now, let me just observe the market first. You can also observe the market before you go in. First of all, let's see those markets that are looking bullish for the day. Those ones that are looking bullish for the day. Likes of Bitcoin. Bitcoin need to. We're waiting for Bitcoin confirmation on this morning star. Is Bitcoin going to dump or is it going to pump? Is Bitcoin going to give us this leg today, or is it going to give us this leg today? Anything is possible with this. Yeah, it is right now, because this is a support resistance level. Anything is possible tonight. Bitcoin standing at a resistance level. Anything can happen. No. Okay, so let's see Solana. Solana is going to give us a pump and dump. Yesterday closure, a pump. So we're going to expect the volatility on Solana up and down. Remember that Solana is still bullish, has not completed his upward movement. So we are still watching Solana to see if he's going to use this opportunity to go the highs. Ethereum also expecting to go for all-time highs. Ethereum has been in a downward momentum for 1 to 3, almost 5 days now. Ethereum has been dumping in peace without any problem. We'll have some support and resistance very closer, waiting for Ethereum. After this double top rejection, are we going to hit here before we move, or are we going to come here to hit the lows before we move? Right. Eight minutes to go. 8 minutes. So the crazy volatility in the market. In your hand. Must trade the volatility. Phone must be in your hand. You have to be active. You want to catch that falling knife. You want to catch it. Be careful. You have to wear a hand glove so it's not going to cut you. Very careful. You must catch every movement tonight. These 4 hours has taken the highs and the lows. So what that means is that market will do up and down. Market will spike up, market will come down. So be careful. We have 6 minutes to go. Minutes, Jerome Powell coming up. So be careful. Every indication is showing that market is going to do up and down. So going to be careful in the market. We have some good liquidities up here for 10 link. Definitely going to come up here to take most of this liquidities up there. 2 is looking so bullish, so don't fade 2 tonight. 2 is almost breaking out again. I think liquidity has moved to SU. He is very active, ready for a move. He is one of the best. You Fatcoin and Ondo. Catch me here. OKB. I don't know why OKB is not pumping tonight. See that there's not much liquidity. Why is OKB? This man going to disappoint us today? How we are going to tell us stories and go without cutting this rate today again? Why is OKB not pumping? Why is Hyperliquid not pumping? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have 3 minutes to go. 3 minutes. Get ready. Get ready. At least it's coming in. Money is moving into the market. Crazy volatilities. Let's take it to the lower time frame and see what is going on. Crazy movements. There will be so many CME gaps that will be created tonight. Oh, this is 230. Still very far. Oh, it's 230. Still very far now. I thought it's even 2 o'clock. FOMC statement. 2 is 2 p.m. Oh, okay, 2:30 is press conference. Press. FOMC statement, 2 o'clock. Start the press conference. Let's see the volatility in the market. But if you don't have network, you go and put network. And how many times I go bring you up? The spike is going on. A minute to go. 1 minute to go. Crazy volatility. Jumping in. Shorters and longers. The bulls and the bears in a heavy competition right now. It's happening already. It's up. It's up. Happening. It's happening. It's happening already. All right. Volatility. It's shocking. It's shocking. It's shocking. Crazy. 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 Dump. Dump. It's dumping. Can you see it? Crazy pumper. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. You need to see what I'm seeing right here. Oh my God. You need to see what I'm seeing right here. Chai. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. See volatility. Pump and dump. Pump and dump is too much. Let's wait for him to come and give us speech. We're waiting for him. And dump. Nobody safe. Shorters and longers. Pump and dump. Pump and dump. Pump and dump. Pump and dump happening right now. Have you seen volatility before in your life? It's raining like water. It's raining. It's raining. It's raining. The rain of pump and dump. Jerome, we're waiting for you. Come up here. Mm. I know you are bullish. Bitcoin on the run. Your name na runner. Pump and dump going on. Aggressive volatility. I think Jerome Powell will be speaking, but I think that's it. Powell will speak by 2:30. Yeah, 7:30 and 2:30 here. Up and down going on. Bitcoin is still standing. Can you feel the volatility? Little. Wait, hold on some more time. Let power come up. So I will see the main volatility is coming. Let's go. We have 19. Are you feeling the market? Why is OKB dumping? Why is OKB dumping? Unusual. OKB to be dumping. A day like this. I feel the pump and dump in the market. Can see the week. All this week are liquidities. Market will still come back to them and claim them. Do not forget, we have some liquidities down here. So don't think that all this liquidity that they're not going to take them. So that's why I said you cannot trade, stay away, because they're going to liquidate shorters and longers. So don't think that this one that they will not take them. They will still come to them. Both the up liquidity and down liquidity, they will not leave anyone. Shorters and longers will not have peace of mind. I see Bitcoin is dumping crazily. Bitcoin need to come and take this low, if possible. I'm still dumping. Not gonna be easy in the market today. A double top, a double bottom right here on chain link. The chain link give us this dump. It's gonna give us a pump from here. You have a whole lot of liquidity right here. So we still have 118K from here. So set your targets. Market is coming here. Take these highs. They have taken these lows here. They're still targeting these ones down here. So they are going to come back here. Clear all these ones. 118. Like I told you in the morning, they will clear all these things will be wiped off today. All these things will be wiped off today. It's going to take both longest and shorters. They will wipe everybody. You can see that the liquidity I just told you about, they have already come there. They have even taken it just now. Just now I told you about this liquidity. See, they are already there. Just now I told you about this liquidity. That is where, see, they're already coming there. See it. They're already targeting it. They're saying that they will take this low. That's how they roll. This liquidity now. Let's look for next one. There are no closest. There's no closest liquidity again. On 15 minutes, there is no closest liquidity on 15 minutes. Yeah. Let's go to 1 hour and see. The liquidity right here. The liquidity right here. Come here. See this? See this? It depends the level they go tonight. This ones. Now let's go to up. The upside because of this same candle. I did up and down, so they will come back and reclaim the highs of this happen here. But they will come take all these places. On the daily, the new liquidities on daily are these ones. High liquidities level. So they're going to come and wipe them 118,000. You can see it. But for now, they want to go and deal with the downward side first. Probably we might see the reason why they took the Probably we might see the reason why they did all-time low, all-time they closed the CME gap yesterday. We might see the reason today. Who knows? They might show us the reason why they closed the CME gap last night by what is going to happen today. Ten minutes to go. Are you bullish or bearish? Up and down. Shortest and longest are not safe. Don't think because you're long that you are safe. No way. Long or short, you're not safe. Bitcoin is about going to all these liquidities. You're going to deal with them. Longest or shortest, longest, shortest association. The association of longest and shortest. Everybody is going to chop within others chop. $4.25, $4.25. $4.25. Hmm? Since morning optional, I hear you did. My brother, I don't have another job. I have to be here to wait for you, sir. Welcome back. Are you be the Jerome Powell PA that now? Then are you why I ask you may give me update? Wait till I to discuss. You know, give me. No, I sleep, I wake up. I doubt for you. My brother, I never make up now. When I make up, I go they sleep like you, sir. I don't make up with that. 100. 100, sir. The volatility is crazy. Don't think you are safe, whether you are longer or shorter, at the risk of liquidation tonight. The level of inflow, both for the red and the green, are almost equal. So you'll be seeing up and down tonight. We have 7 minutes to go to hear from the governor of Federal Reserve. The man will not send anybody. Not send anybody, Papa. Don't look anybody face. Let's go Bitcoin. 118,000 and 113,000. Which one are you going to go first tonight? Where is the closest liquidity? 114. 114 and 118. Which one are you going to choose first tonight? Why is Fat Coin? Fat Coin, where are you? I know you, by now you'll be running. Fat Coin. Double bottom on 15 minutes of Fat Coin. 6 minutes to go. Double bottom on Fat Coin. Movement retest is gonna come. Ondo Because Ondo have the same distance with Fatcoin today. Ondo is supposed to be pumping alongside with Fatcoin. All right, volatility is coming in again because we have 5 minutes to go. Crazy volatility, money flowing in. The people say that they're facing recession. There's no money in the country. How come all this money is flowing in? When I say I don't get money, where I get all this money where they use buy coin? I wouldn't for ask on if I be Jerome Powell. All these millions of dollars flowing in, where can I get them from? So Ondo is moving along. This nigga is pumping so crazily. More X also doing something nice this morning. Of a truth, today's volatility cannot be compared with the last one, the one of last month. Last month by now, everywhere is everywhere don't they do somehow. But today's one is just going up and down. Cannot even see a very good volatility. Like I'm not seeing a very good rejections to the market. That somebody can say, okay, let me go and trade this rejection. Rejection is not heavy. Not seeing any liquidity coming in, push the markets. Like something like this, something with a very good long tail. Market is just the inflow is not going, actually it's not going one direction, going up and down, because it was there already in the morning on the charts, going up and down movement. 2 minutes, 2 minutes to go. Our uncle, our father, Jerome Benjamin Powell, coming up very soon. I mean, Jerome Bonafide Powell. Bonafide, I said the man na your uncle. Bitcoin moving up.
Sorry, I'm having like challenge. Let me small.
Yeah, I'm with you, sir.
Okay. So as I said, 25 points, 25 points, I think 10%. You know that better than they say and unchanged. But Trump want to achieve a 100, 300 basis point shot. So probably at the interest rate, Donald Trump is 1.5. 1.5. It is one of, because for us to achieve 300 basis point, after have to have multiple rate cuts. So probably the next rate cut in October. So we're expecting have one in December. So let's keep our fingers crossed. 5 basis points September, probably 50 this month. That makes it 75. 25, 75, probably.
Okay. Okay, let's start from him. Let's start from him. No. Hold on. Jerome is speaking.
Same time, supportive and a shift in amounts of risks today. We decided to policy interest rate by a 0.25 percentage point. We also decided to reduce our securities holdings. I'll have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Recent indicators suggest that growth of economic activity moderated. GDP rose at a pace of around 1.5% first half of the year, down from 2.5% last year. Moderation in growth largely reflects a slowdown in consumer spending. In contrast, business investment in intangibles has picked up from last year's pace. Activity in the housing sector remains weak. In our summary of economic projections, the median participant projects GDP to rise 1.6% this year and 1.8% next year, a touch stronger than projected in June. In the labor market, the unemployment rate edged up to 4.3% in August, but remained unchanged over the past year at a relatively low level. Payroll job gains have slowed significantly to a pace of just 29,000 per month over the past 3 months. A good part of this slowing likely reflects a decline in the growth of the labor force due to lower immigration and labor force participation. Even so, labor demand has softened. The recent pace of job gain appears to be running below the break-even rate needed to hold the unemployment rate constant. In addition, wage growth has continued to moderate while still outpacing inflation. Overall, the market slowing in both the supply of and demand for workers is unusual. This less dynamic and somewhat softer labor market, downside risks to employment appear to have risen. Our SEP projection for the unemployment rate is 4.5% end of this year and edges down thereafter. Inflation has eased significantly from its highs in mid-2022, but remains somewhat elevated relative to our 2% longer run goal. Estimates based on the Consumer Price Index and other data indicate that total PCE prices rose 2.7% over the 12 months ending in August, and that, excluding volatile energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.9%. These readings are higher than earlier in the year as inflation for goods has picked up. In contrast, this inflation appears to be continuing for services. Near-term measures of inflation expectations have moved up on balance over the course of this year on news about tariffs, as reflected in both market and survey-based measures. Beyond the next year or so, however, most measures of longer-term expectations remain consistent with our 2% inflation goal. Median projection in the SEP for total PCE inflation is 3.0% this year, to 2.6% in 2026 and to 2.1% in 2027. Our monetary actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. At today's meeting, the committee decided to lower the target range for the federal funds rate by a 0.25 percentage point, 4 to 4.25%, and to continue reducing the size of our balance sheet. Changes to government policies continue to evolve. Their effects on the economy remain uncertain. Higher tariffs have begun to push up prices in some categories of goods, but their overall effects on economic activity and inflation remain to be seen. A reasonable base case is that the effects on inflation will be relatively short-lived, a one-time shift in the price level. But it is also possible inflationary effects could instead be more persistent, and that is a risk to be assessed and managed. Our obligation is to ensure that a one-time increase in the price level does not become an ongoing inflation problem. Near term, risks to inflation are tilted to the upside and risks to employment to the downside, a challenging situation. When our goals are in tension like this, our framework calls for us to balance sides of our dual mandate. Downside risks to employment having increased, the balance of risks has shifted. Accordingly, we judged it appropriate at this meeting another step toward more neutral policy stance. With today's decision, we remain well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments, and to determine the appropriate stance of monetary policy based on the incoming data, evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. Our SEP, FOMC participants wrote down their individual assessments of an appropriate path for the federal fund based on what participant judges to be the most likely scenario for the economy. The participant projects that the appropriate level of the federal funds rate will be 3.6% at the end of this year, 3.4% at the end of 2026, and 3.1% at the end of 2027. This path is 1 percentage point lower than projected in June. As is always the case, these individual forecasts are subject to uncertainty. They're not a plan or decision. Policy on a preset course. The Fed has been assigned 2 goals for monetary policy: maximum employment and stable prices. Committed to supporting maximum employment, bringing inflation sustainably to our 2% goal, keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our success in delivering on these goals matters to all Americans. We understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission, and we'll do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price. Thank you. Forward to our discussion.
Jerome, power.
Thank you. Chris Rugaber, Associated Press.
Done.
As you know, Fed Governor Stephen Byron
Let the dump
has
continue.
kept his position at the White House, even as he's joined the Fed board. This is the first time, I believe, the Fed's board has had someone with executive branch ties in decades. This compromise the Fed's independence from day-to-day politics, and relatedly, how can you public's perception the Fed is politically with this dynamic? Thank you.
So we did welcome a new committee member today, as we always do. Remains united in pursuing our dual mandate goals. We're strongly committed to maintaining our independence, and beyond that, I really don't have anything to
Dump
share.
the markets.
You and other Fed officials have spoken about the impact of tariffs on inflation. Although perhaps with many companies appearing to eat tariffs, tariffs may be impacting the labor market and other parts of the economy instead. Do you see that as a possible outcome here, that tariffs are the reason we're seeing some slowing labor market rather than inflation?
No, it's certainly possible. We're beginning to see, we have goods prices showing through into higher inflation, and actually the increase in goods prices accounts for most of the increase in inflation, or perhaps all of the increase in inflation over the course of the year. Those are not very large effects at this point, and we do expect them to continue to build over the course of the rest of the year and into next year. And it's also possible that there may be effects on but I would say if you're looking at why employment is doing what it's doing, that's much more about the change in immigration. The supply of workers has obviously come way down. There's very little growth, any, in the supply of workers. And at the same time, demand for workers has also come down quite sharply. And to the point where we see what I've called a curious balance. Typically when we say things are in balance, that sounds good, but in this case, the balance is because supply and demand have come down quite sharply. Now demand coming down a little more sharply because we now see the unemployment rate edging up.
Chair Powell, do economic
Let the
conditions
dump
and the
begin.
balance of risks
Send us to the ground.
warrant a restrictive policy setting?
I don't think we can say that. What we can say is this: that in the course of this year, our policy at a restrictive level, and people have different views, but a clearly restrictive level, I would say. So, and we were able to do that so this year because the labor market was in very solid condition with strong job creation and all. I think if you go back to April and now look at the revised job creation numbers for May, July, and August, I can no longer say that. So what that means is that the risks were clearly tilted toward inflation. I would say they're moving toward equality. Maybe they're not quite out of equality. We don't know that. And we do know that they've moved meaningfully toward greater equality, the risks between the two goals, and that suggests that we should be moving in the direction of that's what we did today.
What circumstances would a larger than 5 basis points rate cut be warranted, and how seriously was the option entertained at your meeting this week?
There wasn't widespread support at all for a 50 basis point cut today. I think we've done very large rate hikes and very large rate cuts in the last 5 years. We tend to do those at a time when public policy is out of place and needs to move quickly. That's not at all what I feel, certainly now. I feel like our policy has been doing the right thing so far this year. I think we were right to wait, see how tariffs and inflation and the labor market evolved. I think we're now reacting to the much lower level of job creation and other evidence of softening in the labor market and saying, well, those risks are maybe not fully balanced, but moving in the direction of balance now. And so that warrants a change in policy.
Colby Smith with the New York Times. Should we be viewing today's cut as the committee taking out some insurance against the possibility that the labor market is at risk? Or is it the committee's view that the dynamics of a downturn are already in place? I guess I'm just trying to square the shift in the rate forecasts in the SCP towards more cuts than just 3 months ago, with the fact that the forecast for unemployment didn't change.
I think you could think of this in a way as a risk management cut, because look at the SEP, actually projections for growth this year and next actually ticked up just a little bit. Inflation and unemployment. So what's different now? What's different now is that you see a very different picture of the risks to the labor market. We've seen, we were looking at 150,000 jobs a month at the time of the last meeting, and now we see the revisions and we see the new numbers. And I don't want to put too much emphasis on payroll job creation, but it's just one of the things that suggests that the labor market is really cooling off, and that tells you that it's time to take that down in our policy.
Again, the median participant has inflation higher than expected by the end of next year, and the Fed not getting back to the 2% target until. So I guess I'm just wondering how you characterize the risk to price pressures of off series.
Dump the market, dump it.
I would look at it this way. We understand and appreciate that we need to remain fully committed to restoring 2% inflation on a sustained basis, and we will. At the same time, we've got to weigh the risks to the two. And I would say since April, to me, risks of higher and more persistent inflation probably become a little less. And that's partly because the labor market has softened, GDP growth has slowed. So I would just say that risks there have been less than one might think. And in terms of the labor market, what we're seeing is unemployment is still low, still a relatively low rate, but we're seeing downside risks.
Michael McKee from Bloomberg Radio and Television. I'm a little confused by your explanation of the Fed cutting rates because of unemployment. That most of what's happening in the employment area is related to immigration, which your rate cuts wouldn't address. How do you see that as more important than inflation, which has remained almost a full percentage point above your target?
I was saying that what's happening in the market has more to do with immigration than it has to do with tariffs. That was the question I was answering. So I wouldn't say that all of what's happening in the labor market is tariffs. I mean, we have a slowing in due to immigration, have a slowing in demand, which is now perhaps more than that in supply. We know that because the unemployment rate has ticked up. So So that's how it.
Follow up. Every year since 2015, the SEP has forecast that you would hit your target 2 years later. And this year, this SEP says you're going to hit your target 2 years later.
Don't us
2%
Bitcoin.
does not seem to be sight. Does that suggest that the 2% target is not really achievable? And does this present any credibility problems for you in telling people that that's what you're going to do if you never reach it?
I mean, right? It does.
Don't
say
play
we're
hell out
gonna
of
get
us.
50% inflation in 2020.
When I go sit down, when I go believe.
That's literally how you put the projections together. You're writing down a rate path, which is designed to create over the course of the SEP frame. 2%
Long dash
inflation
and
at
short
maximum
dash. Nobody
employment, too.
says.
So that's all that is.
Don't play hell out of
no one
us.
really knows where the economy will be in 3 years. The
Don't-
nature of the exercise
out of
is to
us.
write down policy that you turn to the 2% goal over by the end of the exercise.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth Schulze, WBC News. The latest inflation report shows that prices are still going up across key categories for many households, including groceries. What will the Fed do if prices pick up more?
Our expectation, see this consistently here, that inflation will move up this year basically because of the effects on goods prices from tariffs. But those will turn out to be a one-time price increase as opposed to creating an inflationary process. That's been our forecast. Pretty much every forecast say that. And just assume that, though, right? We have to. Our job is literally to make sure that that is what happens. And right now, the situation we're in is that we see expected to move up, maybe not as high as we would have expected to move up months ago. Pass through of the tariffs into inflation has been slower and smaller. The labor market has softened. So the case for there being a persistent inflation outbreak is less. And so that's why we think it's time for us really to acknowledge that the risks have grown and that we should direction of neutral. So but we have two mandates and we try to balance them. For a long time, the framework says that when our two goals are in tension, this is quite an unusual situation. How do we decide what to do? Because our tools can do is we ask which is farther from, how far is each from, how long is it expected to get to the goal? So, and then we think about those things and we see, as I mentioned, our policy had been really skewed toward inflation for a long time. Now we see that there's downside risk clearly in the market, and so we're moving in the direction of policy.
Are you about the slowdown in the jobs market for households at home, especially younger Americans struggling to land a job?
So it's an interesting labor market, and obviously we think it's appropriate our rates so that we become more neutral, which will be presumably better for the labor market. See. We're sort of more at the margin coming out of college, younger people, minorities are having a hard time finding. The overall job finding rate is very, very low. For the layoff rate is also very low. So you've got a low firing, low hiring environment. And the concern is that if you start to see layoffs, there won't be a lot of hiring going. So that could very quickly flow into higher unemployment. In a healthier economy, healthier market, there would be jobs for those people. Now the rate is very, very low. So that's been a growing concern over the last few months. It's one of the reasons why we think it's appropriate to shift our policy focus toward a more balanced one.
Steve Leisman, CNBC. Mr. Chair, in the past, during rate cuts, you used the word recalibration. And I wonder if you pointedly did not use it this time. And in fact, when you said policy is not on a preset course, that is sort of the opposite of recalibration. Meeting to meeting, data point by data point, are we in the process of getting back to neutral?
I think we're in a meeting by meeting situation. We're going to be looking at the data know what, let me say a word about the SEP really here. So we often point this out. With the SEP, it's an accumulation of the projections of 19 people, showing what they a particular moment in time to be the most likely path for the economy and thus the appropriate path for monetary policy as well. And as you know, we don't debate or try to agree on what that is. We just write them down and accumulate, and we do sometimes discuss them. And so we always say we're not on a preset path, and we really, the actual decisions we make are going to be based on coming data involving outlook and the balance of risks at the time the decisions are actually made. So you will have seen that we have 10 participants out of 19 wrote down 2 or more cuts for the remaining year. 9 who wrote down, and in fact, in a good number of cases, no more cuts. So rather than looking at this as certainty, I would encourage people, as always, look at the SEP as the lens of probability. And so there are different possible outcomes, likelihoods, rather than this one is certain and this one isn't happening. So that's what I would say.
For getting to my follow-up question, which was, is the dispersion in the outlook a sign of uncertainty of policy in the, thank you.
It is such a situation. Ordinarily, when the market is weak, inflation is low. The labor market is really strong. That's when you got to be careful about inflation. So we have a situation where we have two-sided risk, and that means there's no risk-free path. So it's quite a difficult situation for policymakers, and it's not at all surprising to have a range of views. It's not so much about having different for the path, but it's partly that, but it's also partly about what's the right thing to do in light of this, of the tension between how do you weight them, how worried are you about one versus the other, and so it's natural. I think it would actually be surprising if we didn't have a pretty wide range of views based on in this kind of highly unusual situation. So, but we get together, we discuss, we have a great discussion, decide what to do. But you're right. It's a wide dispersion of views, and I think that's understandable and natural in the current situation.
Hi, Victoria Guida. You talked a lot about Fed independence and the importance of it over the years, but as markets have questions about what exactly President Trump's intentions are with the Fed, what would you point to as the things they should be watching to determine that the Fed is still making decisions based on the economic outlook rather than political considerations?
It's deeply in our culture to do our work based on the incoming data and never consider anything else. That's just everybody who's at the Fed really strongly about that way. So, know it by the way we talk about what we're by the decisions that we make. You'll know that we're just still going to do that. That's all we. And we don't frame these questions at all or see them in terms of political outcomes. I think that's another part of Washington. Everything is seen through the lens of help or hurt this political party, this politician. That's the framework, and I think I find it hard to believe that is not at all the way the Fed. We're taking a longer perspective, trying to serve the American people as best we can. So I think you'll. Well, I don't believe we'll ever get to that place. I would say we're doing our work exactly as we always have now, and they're making their arguments and having a really great discussion around these challenging issues. So,
see the court found Lisa Cook as being related to questions of Fed independence?
No, I see it as a case that it would be appropriate to comment on.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Edward Lawrence from Fox Business. So, saw the preliminary benchmark revisions down 911,000. The revisions for June was negative, seen since December of 2020. How can the Fed base important decisions, rate, and what to do with interest rates on data that seems to be, as you called it in the past,
So on the QCEW, revision that we saw was almost exactly what we expected. Yeah. So the reason for that is, for the last bunch of quarters, there's been almost a predictable count, and I think the Bureau of Labor Statistics really does understand this, and they're working hard to fix it. It's got to do, of course, it has something to do with response rates, but it's also got to do with what's called the death model, because a good amount of job creation happens around new companies and how many go out of business, how many are founded, and it's just really hard. You can't survey for that. You've got to have a model that predicts that. It's quite difficult, especially when the economy is undergoing big changes. So, and they're working on that and are making progress on it, but that is still well good enough for us to do our work. To the extent we have issues around right now, it's about low response rates. That's happened all over. Response rates are just lower to surveys out of the government, and it's no great secret. We want higher response rates, and we need to have less volatile data. And to get that is to make sure that the agencies that collect the data have sufficient resources to drive higher response rates. It's not a complicated problem, but that's what it takes. It's not a mystery. That's what it takes. The other thing I'll say, Edward, is in the case of the job creation, the first response rate is quite low for the first month, or lower for the first month. By the time you get to the second, or you're still collecting responses for that last month or that prior month, the place where there are much more reliable by the second, and certainly the third month. So it's not that we don't get the data, it's just that we get it a little deeper.
For the benchmarks, if that holds, it's 51% of the jobs that we thought were there weren't really there. It shows the weak job market to this year. If you had had that information, would it change your mind related to what it should be?
We have to live life looking at the shield rather than that rearview mirror, as you know. And all I can tell you is we see where we are now, and we take appropriate action. We took that appropriate action.
Thanks, Howard Schneider with Reuters. So, as you mentioned a minute ago, some margins of the job market suggest that it's already happening. Like unemployment rate in August, up 7%, declining work week, difficulty among college graduates finding work, rising youth unemployment. Why do you think the percentage now address that?
Well, I didn't say that I thought a quarter point would make a huge difference to the economy, but you've got to look at the whole path of rates, right? The market's has already been baking expectations. I mean, our market works through expectations, right? So I think our policy path really does matter, and I think it's important that we use our tools to support the labor market when we see signs like that. I did mention that. You see minority unemployment going up. You see younger people more vulnerable economically, susceptible to economic cycles. That's one of the reasons, in addition to just overall payroll job creation, that shows you that at the margin, labor market is weakening. I would also point to labor force participation. Some part of the significant decline in labor force participation over the last year has probably been cyclical rather than just the usual process. So we put all those together, and we see that the labor market is softening, and we don't need it to soften anymore. We want it to. So we use our tools. It starts with a 25 basis point rate cut. The market's also pricing in a rate path. I'm not blessing the market's doing it all. I'm just saying it's not just one action.
As a follow-up to that, the growth mix now seems very investment and spending side, higher income groups. But that's an unsustainable mix economy movement.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, you're right. Those are two. We're getting unusual large amounts of economic activity, AI build out in investment. How long that will go on, no one does. In terms of spending, you saw the consumer spending numbers were well above expectations, and that may well be skewed higher earning consumers. There's a lot of anecdotals to suggest that. Nonetheless, spending. So, I mean, I think the economy it's moving along. Economic growth is 1.5% or better this year, maybe a little better. Gas have been coming up, as you can see. So labor market unemployment is low, but downside risks, but it's still low unemployment. So that's how we see it.
Hi, Stephanie Rule, MSNBC. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that the Federal Reserve suffers from mission creep, institutional bloat. Now calling for an. Do you support an independent review, or are you open to sort of reform in any of the Fed?
Of course, I'm not going to comment on anything the Secretary says or really any other officer says. So in terms of reform, we just went through a lengthy and I think very successful process of our monetary policy framework. I would say there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes around the assets we have in the Federal Reserve Federal Reserve System, and at the board. Are they the right size? We're actually going 10% headcount reduction. That includes and all reserve banks. Employment at the Fed at the end of that will be basically at the same level it was more than 10 years ago. That's zero job growth for more than a decade. We're finished with that, and I think we'll probably further than that. So I think we're certainly open to constructive criticism and ways to do our jobs better.
Not an independent.
Certainly open to always trying to do better.
Chairman, Neil Irwin with Axios. There's been some debate lately on whether AI is already starting to affect the labor market or labor demand, high productivity by contrast. Do you buy that? And if that is true, does that have implications for monetary policy setting?
So there's great uncertainty around that. My view, which is also a bit of a guess, but widely shared, I think, are seeing some effects, but it's not the main thing driving it. So particular focus on young people coming out of college, and yeah, there may be something there. It may be that companies or other institutions have been hiring younger people right out of college are able to use AI better than they had in the past. That may be part of the story. It's also part of the story, though, that job creation more broadly has slowed down. The economy has slowed down, and so it's probably a number of things. But yeah, probably a factor. Hard to say how big it is.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. What evidence do you see of tariffs showing up in?
Take goods, sort of the broad goods category, and last year inflation was negative. Back 25 years, that was the typical thing. Was that inflation was prices generally went down, even adjusting for quality. So that was not the case during the pandemic. Of course, goods inflation went very high, but we had essentially returned to zero or slightly negative. Now, I think inflation over the past year is 1.2%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a change. I mean, analysts have different views, but we think it's contributing, 0.3 or 0.4, something like that, to the current CE inflation reading, which is 2.9%. So it's contributing. What seems to be happening is that the tariffs are mostly not being paid by exporters, mostly being paid by really the companies that sit between the exporter and the consumer. So if you buy something and you sell it to retail or you use a product, you're probably taking a lot of those costs on and not able to pass it fully along to the consumer yet. That appears to be what all of those companies and in the middle, they'll tell you that they have every intention of passing that through in time. Not doing that now. The consumer pass-through has been pretty small. It's been slower and smaller than we thought. But the evidence is it's very clear that there's some pass-through.
I also wanted to ask, share with us the conditions under which you consider leaving the Fed in.
I have nothing on that for you today.
Hi, Katerina Saraiva with Bloomberg News. I just wanted to follow up on one of your answers just a couple minutes ago. We've often heard you talk about how you and your colleagues, do not think about politics, did not enter. But one of your new colleagues does world, right, where everything is seen framework of politics and of what party is being helped, and person is still employed by the White House. How can markets and the public interpret some of his speeches, for example, and then some of the forecasts that we see today? I mean, the median for this year was because of the introduction of forecast. I'm talking about the number of rate cuts seen this year. What do you say to markets and the public that are trying to interpret what you guys are saying?
There's 12 vote, 19 participants, of whom 12 vote on a rotating basis. So one voter, really, the only way for any voter to really things around is to be incredibly persuasive, and the only way to do that in the context in which we work is to make really strong arguments based on one's understanding of the economy. That's really all that matters, and that's how it's going to work. And I think that is the way the institution, that's in the DNA of the institution. That's not going to change.
And then I wanted to ask about a Gallup poll that showed that Americans now have more confidence in the president, the Federal Reserve, when it comes to right for the economy. Why do you think that is, and what's your response? What's your message to the public?
Our response is we're going to do everything we can with our tools to achieve that Congress has given us, and we're not going to get distracted by anything. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to keep doing our jobs.
Claire Jones, Financial Times. Given the range of views expressed prior to the meeting, I think there was a lot less dissent today than a lot of people expected. It'd be good to know what you think the drivers were to that very strong consensus in the meeting. Also, on the flip side, to just explain why the dot plots are really so scattered. Someone expecting rates to end up higher by the end of to 5 cuts. I mean, what were the range of views said about one side, why there was so much support for a cut today, and on the flip side, why there's so much diversity about what?
I think there's quite a wide assessment that the situation has changed with respect to the labor market. Whereas we could still say, and did say in July, at the time of the July meeting, the labor market was in solid condition, and we could point to 150,000 jobs per month and many other things. I think that and it's not just payroll, it's other things as well, suggests that really is downside risk. I said there was downside risk then, but I think that downside risk is now a reality, and there's clearly more downside risk. So I think that's broadly accepted, and so that meant different things for different people. Some wrote down, almost everyone wrote down, supported this cut, and some supported more cuts and some didn't. Dot plot. So that's just the way it is. I mean, people have you have people who take this work very seriously, think about it all the time, do the work, discuss it with our colleagues. We endlessly discuss this in ourselves, and then we have a meeting where we put it all out on the table, and this is what you get. And you're right, there's a range of views, dots, and I think that's, like I said, very unsurprising given the quite unusual, historically unusual nature of the challenges that we face. Let's remember, though, the unemployment rate's 4.3%. Economy's growing 1.5%. So it's not a bad economy or anything like that. We've seen much more challenging economic times, but from a policy standpoint of what we're trying to accomplish, it's challenging to know what to do. There are, as I mentioned earlier, there are no risk-free paths now. It's not incredibly obvious what to do. So our eye on inflation. At the same time, we cannot ignore and must keep our eye on maximum employment. Those are our two evils. And you will see that there are a range of views on what to do, nonetheless, we together today at the meeting and acted with a high degree of unity.
Thank you, Archie Hawke, economist. You mentioned earlier that job creation is running below your guess at its break-even rate. I'd be curious to hear a bit more about that, where you think it is.
So there are many different ways to calculate it. And, none of them is perfect, but it's clearly come way down. They're say it's somewhere between 0 and 50,000, and you'd be right. Wrong. I mean, there's many ways to do it. So wherever it was, 150,000, 200,000 months ago, it's come down quite significantly. That's because very amount of people are joining the labor force. Labor force really not growing much at this point. That's a lot of where the supply of labor was coming from over the last 2 or 3 years. We're not getting that. We're also got much lower demand. It's interesting that supply and demand have really come down together so far. I do have unemployment ticking up outside, just one tick outside of the range where it's been for a year. 4.3% is still a low level, but I think this level of speedy decline in supply and demand has certainly gotten everyone's attention.
Right. You mentioned the downside risk to employment there, Matt. It's striking that measures of kind of activity and output for the third quarter that we have seem pretty strong. The Atlanta Fed's GDP now is very strong C numbers as well. How do you square those things? Is there a chance that actually could be upside risks to the labor activity measures, all right?
Well, that would be great. We'd love that to happen. So I don't know that you see a big tension there, but it's gratifying to see that economic activity is holding. So it's a good from consumption. It looks like consumption is stronger than expected. Got earlier this week. Yes, and also we're getting a fairly narrow sector is producing a lot of economic activity, which is the I build out and business investment. So we watch all of it. I would say we did move up growth for this year, actually up SEP between June and September SEP. So and really the inflation and labor market change much. It's really the risks that we're seeing to the market that were the focus of today's decision.
Hi, Nicole Goodkind with Barron's. Thank you for taking my question. Given the cumulative impact of high interest rates on the housing sector, I'm wondering how concerned you are that current rate levels are exacerbating housing affordability issues and potentially during household formation and wealth accumulation for a segment of the population?
Housing is an interest-sensitive activity, so it's at the very center of monetary policy. And the pandemic hit, cut rates to zero. The housing companies were incredibly grateful. Really, they said that was kept them going was that cut so aggressively, provided credit and things like that, and they were able to finance because we did that. The other side of that is when inflation gets high and we raise rates, and you're right, it burden the housing industry. So rates have come down a bit, and as that happens, we don't set mortgage rates, but our policy rate changes tend to affect mortgage rates, and that has been happening, and that'll of course raise demand, lower borrowing rates for business, help will help supply, and so some of that should happen. Analysts think that there have to be changes for it to matter a lot, for the big changes in rates for the matter a lot for the housing sector. Now, the other thing is by achieving maximum employment and price stability, that's a strong economy. That's a good economy for housing. And then the last thing I'll say is, there's a deeper problem here, not a cyclical problem that the Fed can address, and that is a pretty much nationwide housing shortage. Or a lot of places in the country just don't have enough housing and all of the areas around metropolitan areas like Washington are very built up, and so you're having to build farther and farther out, and that's where it is.
And just a quick follow-up, during the last SEP, or the press conference following the last SEP, seemed to indicate that policymakers lacked conviction about their projections, and I'm wondering if you still feel that way.
Forecasting is very difficult even in placid times, and Doug mentioned before, forecasters are a humble lot with much to be humble about. So I think right now is a particularly challenging time, even more uncertain than. And so I don't know any forecaster anywhere really. Ask any of the forecasters whether they have great confidence in their forecast right now. I think they'll honestly say no.
Thank you, Chair Powell. Jennifer Schonberger with Yahoo Finance. If you're cutting rates, why continue to reduce the size of your balance sheet? Pause the unwinding.
Well, I think we're cutting the size of our balance sheet quite marginally now. As you know, with the balance sheet, we're still in an abundant reserves condition. We've said that we would stop somewhat above an ample reserves level. That's where we are, and we're getting close to that. We're monitoring it very carefully. We don't think that has at all macroeconomic effects. These are pretty small numbers moving around inside a giant. The level of runoff is not very large, so I wouldn't attribute macroeconomic consequences to that at this point.
And at his recent confirmation hearing, Stephen Myron brought up that the Fed actually has three mandates from Congress, not just jobs and stable prices, but also moderate long-term interest rates. So what does Congress mean by moderate long-term interest rates? How should we understand that when we see the 10-year Treasury? And how do you think about this part of the mandate when policy choices like rate cuts or balance sheet reductions affect the long end of the yield curve?
So we always think of it as the dual mandate, maximum employment and price stability for a long time, because we think moderate long-term interest rates are something that will result from stable inflation, low and stable inflation, and maximum employment. So we haven't thought about that for a very long time as a third mandate that requires independent action. That's where that is. And there's no thought of, as far as I'm concerned, there's no thought of considering that, considering that we somehow incorporate that in as something in a different way.
Thanks, Chair Powell. Matt Egan from CNN. We recently learned that average FICO credit scores are down this year by 2 points, the most since 2009 during the Great Recession. Fees are high for car loans, personal loans, credit cards. How concerned, if at all, are you about the health of your finance? Do you expect this cut will help?
So, we're aware of that. I think default rates have been kind of ticking up, and we watch that. Not at a level. I don't believe we're at a level where overall they're terribly concerning, but it is something that we watch. Lower rates should support economic activity. I don't know that one rate cut will have visible effect on that. Time, a strong economy with a strong labor market is what we're aiming for, and stable prices. So that should help.
This rate cut is coming at a time when the stock market is at or near all-time highs. Some valuation metrics are elevated. Is there a risk that cutting rates overheat finance, potentially bubble?
We're tightly focused on our goals, right? And our goals are maximum employment price stability. And so we take actions that we take with an eye on those goals. Separately, and that's why we did what we did. Separately, we monitor financial stability very, very carefully. I would say it's a mixed picture, but households, banks are in good shape. Overall, households are still in good shape in the aggregate, and I know that the end of the income spectrum are under pressure, obviously, but from a financial stability perspective, we monitor that picture. We don't have a view that there's a right asset prices particular financial asset, monitor the whole, really looking for structural vulnerability. And I would say those are not elevated.
Hi, Chair Powell, Jean Young with MI Market News. I wanted to ask about inflation expectations. You said the Fed can't take the stability of inflation expected. You mentioned at the short run they've gone up a little bit, a bit about that. And then also at the long run, I'm wondering, do you see evidence that the debate over Fed independence and the growth deficit is putting pressure on inflation expectations?
So, as you said, shorter-term inflation expectations have tended to respond to near-term inflation. So if inflation goes up, inflation expectations will continue to get back down. Fortunately, throughout this period, longer-term inflation expectations, both break even in markets and almost all of the longer-term surveys, Michigan being an outlier lately, have just rock solid in terms of running at levels that are consistent with 2% inflation over time. So take that for granted. We actually assume our actions have a real effect on that, and to continually show and also discuss our commitment to 2% inflation. And so you'll hear us doing that. But as I mentioned, it's a difficult situation because we have risks that are both affecting the labor market and inflation. Those are our two goals, and so we have to balance those two. When they're both at risk, we have to balance them, and that's really what we're trying. Your latter part of your question was about dependence. I don't see market participants. I don't see that that's something they're factoring in right now in terms of setting interest rates. Thanks very much.
It doesn't say about fact that are open to and it is right. I think it doesn't say about any just water and I and they can share the data of and then and never nothing was and then and then that aspect I agree. And if you look at it, there's not true. Parents are living there. Yeah. Only
my own if it's independent, it's a good the only thing and for me I doubt it's neutrality. It's true. I mean I doubt the guys neutrality. But if the Fed is neutral, it's a good thing. That's
Talking about let's start another. Or let's allow I mean draw down.
Yeah.